Our next stop is sessions. To understand what sessions are and how they work, imagine a scenario like this. Let's say you have an online shopping site. Now imagine a buyer who comes to the site, clicks on login, fills up his or her username and password, signs in and proceeds to a storefront page where the user browses through categories, picks up a product, click on its link to go to another page where he sees details and then finally clicks on the buy button, ultimately leading to a checkout process. Now, the big question here is, how exactly do we make the site remember this particular user as he traverses across multiple pages back and forth on the site? The reason we have to ask this question is because HTTP is stateless, which means that every time you visit a page or submit a form or do anything that requires your page to connect back to the server, the request is treated as unique and has no connectivity or relation to any prior request. This means that when a user traverses across pages, unique requests would be created and hence there is no built-in way by which we would be able to remember or recall the user's identity across these routes or pages. This is where sessions or data persistence comes in. As a concept, sessions allow you to persist user-specific data such as profile picture URIs, user IDs, name, etc. as the user traverses the site. This allows every page to know exactly who's browsing so that the experience and functionality can be tailored distinctly for every user. Sessions can be deployed using a couple of ways. The first technique uses request parameters. In this method, once the user logs in, the data or a reference associated with the user such as the user ID, name, profile picture, etc. are assigned a unique identifier known as a session ID. Here you can see session ID 001, session ID 002. However, in reality, this would be a unique and secure ID. This is stored in the database on the server and is marked to timeout after a preset amount of time. Here, I want this data to expire after 300 seconds of being created. Again, don't worry about how this is achieved. What is important is that session data must expire after a given amount of time. The reason for that is security. You do not want a user to be logged in forever, or else such an access can be misused, causing critical and irreversible damage to private data. Now, to make our pages or routes aware of this particular user, we simply append a URI request parameter, shown here in red, to every link in the page. This way, any route or page can look up the session ID to know precisely who's browsing and whether they are granted access or not. If the session has expired, then the route handler can simply redirect to the login page and deny access to secured routes. The second method involves using hidden form fields. So for instance, if you're making a post request through a form, a hidden form field can be pre-populated with the unique session ID of the user who's logged in so that the next page or route to where the form is going to post to can know who submitted the page. These respective pages can query back the sessions record in the database to know who's browsing the page. The third method involves storing the session ID in the user's browser as a session cookie. A cookie is a small piece of data, usually no bigger than 4 KB, that websites can store in a user's browser and retrieve as necessary. In the case of a session cookie, this data is usually stored in memory, which means that if the user closes the browser window, this data is purged and this causes the session to expire since our code on the server won't be able to fetch the same session ID when the user reopens the browser and visits a secure route. This third method is what Express uses internally. All of these methods have their own set of merits and demerits, and there is no single technique that is completely foolproof. Usually, many other associated techniques such as encrypting the session ID are used to create a more secure environment. Now that you know why we need sessions and how you can implement them in your app, let's go back into ChatCat and implement sessions.